Hello and welcome to How to Stay Married So Far. If you're listening on podcast, you could head over to YouTube and search the Sawalha-Adderleys and watch us on video, and vice versa if you're watching us on YouTube. I'm not too sure what this particular episode is about. This is something
Neither am I.
Somebody sent Mark and said, why don't you do a podcast around this? And we thought, why don't we just wing it? Because the head...
I literally don't know what we're talking about.
Because the title, what's the title?
The title is 10 Things Emotionally Mature People Never Do in Relationships, i.e., are we emotionally mature or immature?
So we thought we would just see.
So there are 10 things.
Then you can see along with us, and you could maybe see with your own partner.
I think before we get going, I think the received wisdom is that men are emotionally immature and women are emotionally mature. I think that's a societal norm. It's a stereotype. It's a given. It's what people think. Obviously, it's not the case.
Most women say.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird though, because if that was said the other way around about women, it would be terrible, wouldn't it? It would be considered massively sexist.
Do you know what? Watching, we are obsessed with Married First Sight Australia, aren't we? And in this particular series, there is a man who is so emotionally intelligent. Every episode, don't we? All of us, you, me, and the girls will say, oh, this man. And you do, and it's so interesting the way that the woman that he's married to, her mother, everybody, the woman he's married to constantly keeps saying, this is too good to be true. Like, he's saying all these things. And it's really weird. He says these incredibly emotionally articulate things, and she just immediately turns it around to mean something the polar opposite, doesn't she?
Absolutely. I mean, I think we're going to do a separate chat. Married at First Sight Australia is throwing up so many topics and things, so we're going to talk about that elsewhere. But I sometimes wonder whether, like with the chap in that show, I sometimes wonder if you get an emotionally intelligent man and the woman who's with him realises this, baked into being a woman is a search for disappointment in men. So it means that whatever level, I do feel this, whatever level of emotion...
horrendous thing you just
No, it isn't.
Baked into woman is a search...
Into women. I didn't say woman like that.
Is a search for disappointment. How about baked into women is a real knowledge through their experiences...
That's dog food being delivered.
...that they need to stand back a bit before they can trust.
I believe that baked into being a woman is a desire to find disappointment in their partners.
That is such a terrible
It's
thing.
not, because let me finish my thought. Because I think regardless of what emotional intelligence... Look at the guy in Married at First Sight. Regardless of where you can be, you could tick every box perfectly, and then huge numbers of women will say, if men are incredibly emotionally intelligent, that they're boring, or that they're predictable, or that they're,
That's a separate topic, and I think what you're talking about there is the whole thing about when guys are too nice. Why do the good guys get turned down so often? Why do so many people look for bad boys? I think that's what you're talking about. But I will not have you say baked into women is a search for disappointment, because it's so pick me. It's like, oh God, us guys, even if we did everything right, they would still... Hang on, let me speak, because if you keep talking over me. Baked into every woman. Oh my God, look at me. Like, every day I just try and do everything perfectly, and still she's going to be disappointed. It plays into that whole thing of nagging women, moaning old cows, and it's just not true.
You've made that connection. I'm not thinking of it in those terms.
No, but that's how women will hear it. What you just said, that's how it sounds.
Any woman who hears that, that's
like
not how I'm talking about it.
No,
what I'm talking about is that we always, and I think within relationships, women get there more quickly, because of this idea that men are more emotionally immature than they are. It's a received wisdom in most families. It is inherited from women, from their mothers, that that women slightly know better. Women have a sort of more omnipotent sense of what's right and what's wrong, and that the men invariably revert to childish, infant... So That's an all right given. What I'm saying is within
In
that,
my experience, that
but,
has been the truth.
Yeah, but my point is that women will conform. Lots of women will conform to that, regardless of how emotionally intelligent their partners are. It's like the bar is always a bit higher than wherever a man can get to because they're a man. I'm sorry, that's what I think.
That's the most sexist thing that's been said in this entire series.
If you think about what I've said, it's not sexist.
I have
at all.
thought about what you said.
I've
I've completely understood what you've just said.
You've concurred with my description of women inheriting this idea that men are childlike. That is sexist, the way you just shrug your shoulders and say, that's the way it is.
In my experience, that's what I found.
That's all I'm saying, in my experience.
Well, that's a better thing to say than saying in women. If you say in your experience with all the women that you've been with, that's a different thing. But you can't say all women.
Of course I can't say
well,
all
okay,
women.
well now I've helped you out. Because that's what you said.
You're now doing it.
That's what you said.
You're now demonstrating your own emotional intelligence in a flexy fashion.
With all the men that I have had relationships with, the description you just gave is true.
Which one?
The one where you said that men revert to childhood, that they your great long speech, I agree. But I know that not all men are like that. But in my experience, and in mostly the experience that I've seen relatives of mine or friends of mine, I have noticed that there is that theme that men do often revert to childhood. They feign like that they can't do this and they can't do that and they don't know what and they and they've forgotten this and they've forgotten that. And women, more often in my experience that I've seen, are the ones that pull the emotional balance of the family together the whole time.
That's massively sexist.
In my experience, I didn't say all men.
Yeah,
It's an important distinction.
Hang on, listener, viewer.
It's an important distinction.
Hang on. This is what you do. Hang on, let me finish. This is what women do.
No, you mustn't say
when
women.
you say,
You're wrong to do that.
When you say, in my experience, the very physical gesture is, well, it's probably the majority of the time. That is exactly... You're doing it now.
If that's how you wish to interpret what I said, then that is up to you. If that's, as you said to me, if that's the way I wish to interpret when you said all women have baked into them a need for disappointment, and if you said to me, if that's the way you want to hear it...
Yeah.
So in my experience, on the whole, I have been more emotionally intelligent than the men I have been out with. In all my experiences with the men I've been out with, I've been more emotionally intelligent than they have. If you want to argue that point with me about whether you think that that's true in our relationship or not, begin.
What? Throw the gauntlet down.
Begin.
Look, if you want to... I mean, look at you.
But
Just
begin.
your body language.
Do you think
I'm going to say two things to you. I think I'm quite emotionally intelligent for a man.
You are. For a man, you've just done it to yourself.
Yeah, exactly. No, but you're not screaming sexism there, are you?
You've just done it to yourself.
I am throwing us under the car here. But my point is, I'm quite emotionally intelligent, but it's not enough, or it's never the right amount, we all fall short in our emotional intelligence. And I think that it's assumed that men fall short a lot more than women do. That's possibly true.
I would agree.
But I genuinely think that part of that happens because women's bar gets higher and higher, or the constancy that's required.
It couldn't be their skill set.
I would make the same sexist generalisation and saying most men end up getting fidgety in relationships, or lose interest in terms of physical attraction, stuff like that.
Most men.
Not most, yeah, but a lot of men. These things happen in relationships.
You've got to be careful with the way that most men are unfaithful.
No, I didn't say unfaithful. You did. I said they go off their partners, or they lose as much passion for their partners. That doesn't mean they go off and do something, but they're just not as excited.
All right, so I can, with the greatest of ease, say that your academic ability, your intelligence, your intellect is far greater than mine, and that I'm fine with that. But you would not allow yourself to say to me that my emotional intelligence is of a higher standard than yours.
I have
You wouldn't give me that, would you?
I have said repeatedly,
Not on this podcast.
off camera,
Well, that's
I have
irrelevant. It's off
repeatedly
camera.
said that you demonstrate go to my Instagram account. Every time I post a bloody
to
thing
my
about you,
Insta-
it says about your emotional intelligence is second to none. I mean, and
So
and
what
girls,
are
and
you
girls,
arguing about then?
that regardless of how emotionally intelligent, more emotionally intelligent I could be, I would still fall short. Is there some apex that I could reach that would be like, oh wow, I've met my match? No, women want to be in control of the emotional intelligence.
Well, there are many areas where I've asked you to be more emotionally intelligent and you haven't responded.
And sometimes I think you're emotionally intelligent in every department, and you're not.
I'm not in every department, but you just said to me, is there an apex? Could I give you the list? And then let's come back in 6 months and see if you were able to reach it.
Which list?
Of the apexes that I would like you to reach
Start them now.
emotionally. Well, I don't think I should on here.
This has got off to the weirdest start.
Well, it's because you tried to come out of the hatches
No,
at such
come out
a
of the traps.
Traps. You came out of the traps like so gung-ho and full of yourself, spouting off generalisations, horrendously sexist.
No, I won't have that.
Half-baked thoughts.
No, not half-baked.
And now you don't like where we've ended up, which is against the ropes.
God, you're using racing and boxing analogies now. I do feel like I might have.
Hang on, I might get the cricket out.
I might have stumbled at Beecher's Brook or whatever it is, or the chair in the Grand National. No, I genuinely think that regardless of how emotionally intelligent a man can be within a couple, within a family, within a home, within a house, the woman of the house will always assume they are more emotionally intelligent. And that if the bloke disagrees with them, it's some kind of lack in the man.
I think that is the most monumental cop-out I've ever heard. There's no point.
Why is it?
Because what you're saying is, there's no point us trying.
No.
Because however hard we try, they'll never be happy.
Did I
Those
say it
nagging
like that?
old bags.
Did I say it like that?
You said it in a perfectly middle-class, lovely way, but underneath,
That's not true.
you were fully stuck in the 50s. Yes, you
Everyone,
were.
every man should strive to be as emotionally intelligent as possible, but the barometer and the measuring stick in their home will forever be going out of reach.
All right, well, give me an example where I've asked for a particular level of emotional intelligence in something, and you've reached it, and I've gone, no, that's not good enough.
I can't think of specific things, but what I can think of is general behaviours that change. And when those behaviours buckle or fuck up for a moment, the response is like it's never changed. It's like I haven't got to a better place.
Give
I
me an
haven't learned
example.
around jealousy or around.
Now, right, okay, pause. Because actually that was the example I was going to give you to, when asked, of where you have reached it. I asked for you to do something about that because it become intolerable for me, and it's it's a huge emotional shift, intelligent shift to be able to, and you did that. And if you dare sit here now and say for 1 second, I don't acknowledge that.
No, you do acknowledge it, but when there's a wobble,
Listen to me. Not only do I do it all the time on our channels and to you, I also said it on a network television show last Thursday.
Yeah, I know. You also talked about my dick, which came up everywhere in the bloody press. That was really nice.
No, I didn't. Oh,
Yes, you
so
did. Yes. It's like, it's one thing being in control of it here, but being told by subs, oh, they were mentioning your penis on Loose Women this week.
So
hang on.
So that doesn't work.
By the same measure, go to my Instagram, and I have repeatedly said that you are one of the most emotionally intelligent people I've ever met.
So why have you started this argument in such a stupid way then?
Because I think the majority of men are doomed from the outset.
I think your argument is falling to pieces. You like, it's literally like watching a toddler build a few bricks and then run into it and knock it down. I'm actually feeling quite sorry for you.
Oh, fuck off. Okay, all right. Well, so 10 things emotionally mature people never do in relationships. Well, But clearly, apparently, Nadia
Imagine
thinks
that.
I haven't been emotionally mature.
Imagine now if everyone that comes up, we've already demonstrated it in the
Okay,
first
so the
40
first one
minutes.
is playing mind games. The idea that people see relationships as a competition where they win every time they get what they want. I have been in relationships like this where
What's the
playing mind games. That's one of the.
so
That's one of the things an emotionally mature
immature
person wouldn't do. So it's
Yeah.
emotionally mature to play mind games. And I think mind games can happen around, I think, weirdly, going back to jealousy, I was surprised and could never trust that you wouldn't kind of want to play with jealousy. Because I think a lot of relationships like to get that thrill of making someone feel like, oh, I might leave them, or oh, I might not want to be with them, or, you know, people making their partners feel jealous on purpose. You never did that when I was feeling jealousy. My jealousy was a self-bred kind of trauma, which I then, you know, put out in the world. But I could never come to terms with the idea that you weren't playing mind games in that department.
how emotionally mature of you.
No,
you
what I'm saying.
You had a person completely not,
No,
and
I
you
know.
knew it, so you just made yourself think it anyway.
Yeah, but I wasn't. But I have been in relationships with people where they have played mind games.
I think very much, I think this is a maturity thing. It's something you either grow out of. I think that it's totally normal.
I disagree.
When you're younger to play a bit of that. And also, some people are strong enough in their relationship that they could play a little with that. But I think if you've ever had a relationship where you've been in that kind of like game, it can either become very addictive and you keep on playing it, or you go, well, actually, that wasn't fun for anyone, because actually it left me feeling a bit shit, left them feeling a bit shit, which is where I got to in my early 30s, late 20s.
I can think of couples I know that are deeply competitive. You know,
No, I'm talking about
emotionally or
playing
with
games
children
with jealousy, particularly. I'm
Yeah.
I'm just talking specifically about that. Playing the mind games around jealousy, for me, was more an immaturity thing.
Right.
I wouldn't think of. I mean, just wouldn't. From my 30s, it never wouldn't have occurred to me to do that. I think it's dangerous because you never know where that can end up. But I think competitiveness within a relationship. I mean, we obviously get competitive when we're arguing because
you want to
it's-
win a round.
Because I suppose part of it is it's quite fun, isn't it? I mean, it's like playing chess. Having an argument is a bit like playing chess. It's like, well, I'll make this move, you make this move, da da da. So that is a bit of mind games, I suppose, when one is arguing, because there's nobody that argues that doesn't want to win. Which I understand that. But when somebody says, oh God, why would I go in a race if I didn't want to win? I never wanted to win in a race. I never wanted to win at anything that I was never competitive around more everyday things.
I don't have as much stomach for rowing anymore.
But
I mean,
I'll
I
be
literally
competitive
don't.
in an argument because it just fires my synapses.
It certainly does. I've noticed you get crosser quicker in rows now.
Because one knows what the other person's going to say after a certain amount of time.
What, because you're emotionally more
Can we just cut this
intelligent?
bit out? Because this bit's boring. When you've been 20 years arguing with the same person and they bring up the same argument every time, you're like, oh my God, here we go.
Okay, number 2.
Comment below if you feel the same.
But you see, I couldn't even be bothered to come back on that.
Exactly.
Men
It's
give up.
boring.
Men give up.
Men give up. Well,
But we
if men
do.
give up, how pathetic of men.
Men give up. I can think of 5 relationships where I think the men have become shadows of,
Well, it's their
of their
fault.
former selves because they literally can't be bothered to argue against someone who so
I know a million-
arrogantly thinks
I
that
know
they
a
are
million-
emotionally more intelligent than them.
I know 1 million women, 1 million, 10 million, 100 million, 5 billion across
you
the
don't.
globe of women that just don't say anything. So don't give me the woe is me for men.
Giving the silent treatment, that was a good segue, wasn't it? The silent treatment is one example of passive-aggressive behaviour. This is immature. It's a form of emotional manipulation. This is something I witnessed an awful lot in my grandfather, and I never understood it. I didn't like it. I never understood it. It created a weird atmosphere. It disallowed any kind of resolution. It also served the purpose of, kicking up the sort of the dust so that no one could get in, so that the person on the other side of the silence could get in. I could see my nan struggling to orientate herself as to what had gone wrong, and that silence really perniciously
it's very aggressive, passive aggressive.
Yeah, it really is. And I have experienced deep, intimate experience of one of the most passive aggressive person I've ever met in my life. And that was defined by a knowledge that because, I was passionate and this, that and the other, and I would express myself, they would literally just lay booby traps everywhere and go silent. I just find it the most passive aggressive. It's just horrendous. I hate the silent treatment. I hate it. I'd rather have a row. But
I know someone that they will go silent for days with each other, and they've got children. And they always say, we never row, but we'll go silent. And I think the raging noise of a silent row is just horrendous. I don't know how somebody can maintain living with somebody where days and days they don't talk to each other. I mean, don't get me wrong, when we have a big argument, I get to a point where I just literally don't want to say another word. But we've always completely blown up before that. So there is a certain amount of both of us, however stupid it was, we've said it. But when somebody's angry, and honestly, I've spoken to people over the years this, and the other person doesn't get angry at all and just goes silent.
Well, they are angry.
Awful. Well, of course they're angry.
It's not that they're not angry.
But it's so frustrating for the other person. But I at some point, to end a row, because our rows would, not so much now, but in the past, though we can still do it, would have gone on for weeks, shouting, because neither of us would give up. So eventually I'd always go silent. I always go silent first, because I just think it's got to stop.
Well, you not only go silent, you go upstairs and you don't try and resolve it in the day.
You have to get away from it. You can't go from a raging row. Your problem is you always want to immediately, and now can we just all be better? It can't, only if I pretend. And when I was a kid growing up, me and my sisters, if we would argue, my mum would say, you have to say sorry to each other, like before you can come down. So we'd do this fake sorry. Or if my mum was angry with me, you can't come down till you're sorry. And I would do this sorry, and I didn't feel it. And I would always say, I will never, as long as I live, make my children say sorry. A forced sorry. It's like when you say sorry to me sometimes, I'm just like, it's the worst thing, because I know it's just because you want to rush and get it all just like okay because you feel anxious or everything. And it's just the worst feeling, because it's like, well...
Isn't it just another...
I hate saying sorry unless I mean it.
But a phrase you use a lot is faking it to make it. So
a sorry.
Why can't trying to make up, more speedily or before... I hate going to sleep on a row, because then you wake up with that dread in the morning.
Sorry...
Even a fake sorry...
isn't resolution.
It's not resolution, but it's faking it to make it.
No, you don't say the word. What you do is you tentatively try and talk to each other nicely, and you work your way back, but to go, listen, I'm sorry. It's just I didn't realise that. That will always kick all the dust up again, and everyone will start arguing again. I mean, anyone would say that. Okay. A sorry, which is a way to get back to the argument, is quite a childish thing to do, actually.
Okay. Number 3 is ignoring boundaries. Think about how you respond to your partner's needs. Do you put pressure on them to conform to what you want? When they ask for space, do you respect it? I mean, I think everyone does that a little bit, don't they? I mean, right down to I always remember you saying someone you knew who, if someone, I can't remember who it was, someone in a couple, if the woman read a book, the partner would get sort of unsettled by that and sort of wonder why they weren't sort of present or in the room with them, or, that they were escaping into their own thing. I mean, I know you think me hating you with your AirPods on is me not wanting you to do your own thing. It is the infuriating fact that you will call out to everyone in the house and we all have to jump. And whenever we call out to you, you get aghast and fed up if you have to do that. And you've started doing this. You go,
you look a bit angrier than
No,
I think you want
but you
to.
start to do that. You pull your ears. You always deflect as soon as I get. No, you always deflect.
You were like, and then you just
No,
pull out your.
but you do. You put every time you look aghast and you pull your ears out. It's just like, well, you're calling us on the toilet upstairs, bellowing from room to room. We want to talk to you when you're in the same room, and you still get cross. So.
We'd done a podcast on my AirPods and we'd reached an agreement, which was I would tell you when I'm putting my AirPods
It's not about that. Family life demands a quick kind of question.
Imagine if you were actually listening to this podcast, you'd go, Jesus
The people are
Christ,
listening. People are listening.
I have to deal with my own relationship, listening
Ignoring
to these
boundaries.
two argue.
So do you feel do you ignore boundaries? Do you respect boundaries?
I think sometimes it's really difficult when you live together and work together and you're in an open plan house
True.
to actually know what the other person's boundaries are. So I'm sure we both trample over each other's boundaries, not on purpose, but because we don't actually recognise them. So for instance, just that, like, because we had this discussion, didn't we, about my AirPods, and it wasn't I, because like you would be like hours editing and then I would have my earpods on doing something really boring, like clearing out the bloody kitchen again, and then you would be annoyed that I hadn't heard you, and I'd think, but you've been 2 hours plugged in and you've looked up and I was supposed to be available in that second, and that's what pissed me off, because it was like, okay, so you've got this boundary which is this force field around you when you're editing, which is like, I totally respect, But then often I will come into you in there and I'll say something, or I'll ask you to do something, and I shouldn't really do that, because you're right in the middle of doing something. I don't think ever is it intentional, but I think we both do it, for sure.
You interrupt me more than I interrupt you. That's for sure.
Oh my God.
It's true. What can I say? It's true. Number 4. Look at your face. Look at it. You can't say anything.
This is the face I want to put.
Yeah, no,
when
I know
you were
it is.
looking the way you were, I didn't think you wanted to look that way.
Which
but
way?
I don't mind.
I don't understand.
Looking how
Which
I'm
way was I
feeling.
looking?
You were going, you going, take your earpods out. It's just a bit much.
Oh, okay.
Don't go over to YouTube and watch this. If anybody is actually still listening, because I wouldn't.
Playing the blame game. Blaming the other one for things in the relationship rather than seeing things as teamwork. Pointing fingers. You're a bit of a shit sticker.
Oh my God.
You are.
You're doing it now. You haven't even opened the bloody discussion. People are pointing your finger
but
at
you
me.
are. You're a bit of a shit sticker.
Do. You're a
Who's done this?
You just proved yourself. I'm going to have to leave this podcast because I'm going to end up like, fucking divorcing you. How to stay married so far.
how to divorce in minutes. Have you been there? Do you feel that either one of us pins the blame on the other? Can
you just run back at what you read, and then you immediately went, yeah, that's what you do, and pointed your finger at me? It was quite extraordinary, the example.
You like the shit. What example was it?
When
Pointing fingers.
Yeah, and then you finished reading it out and pointed your finger at me. I said, you're the one that does that.
I was pointing your finger about you pointing fingers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what I was pointing a finger at. It was about you pointing fingers. Which you do. You do like to know who's done this. I hear it. It's
talking about the relationship. It's talking about when they left their pants for the 10th time, or put the toilet roll in the middle of the bloody. When you take the toilet roll off the toilet roll.
Oh, I see in the toilet.
Mark, you've started to do something
this is going to bore
worse.
People. What?
Having now completely controlled yourself from taking the toilet roll off the toilet roll holder and put it in the middle of the bathroom, you're now unravelling the 3 underneath it.
Hang on, that wasn't me. I saw that. I saw that and I thought... I didn't think I was going to get the blame for that. That was not me, because I was just as pissed off. That's one of the girls, that was.
That was not our girls. Wouldn't do that.
I swear on your life.
Well, it was you or your mother.
It was not me. It was not me. So what do they mean then? They mean in terms of blaming each other?
I don't know. You were very quick to say it was me.
Well, you're right. Okay, domestic things isn't quite so significant. But I guess, is there blame around what? Blame for emotion? What deep emotional blame?
Blame for the unhappiness in a relationship.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, I don't think we do that. No, I don't think we do that. I mean, there are times where sometimes...
Do you know what the question is? Because I'm looking at you and I'm thinking he doesn't know.
Do we point the finger at... Well, because I took that literally, pointing the finger at people for what you've not done in the house or not done practically. But pointing the finger for something about the relationship that isn't going well, well, there's a balance, isn't there? Hang on, there's a dividing line between pointing the finger and also trying to recognise where the problem comes from. The reason I'm saying this is recognising the fact that as an addict, I will have brought a lot of, obviously, distress and upset and everything to the family dynamic. Just having mental health, bipolar, will bring unintentionally things to the table. And it's not, I'll be clear here, I've never felt in any way, shape or form blamed for that. I do sometimes worry, and this isn't about you, it's about a worry for myself, that too many of my emotions in my own head can end up feeling like they're ascribed to a mental health condition rather than actually just me, but that's not really blame.
It's very difficult that though, isn't it? Because a mental health, something like bipolar or ADHD, you have bipolar, I have ADHD, you also have ADHD. How can you separate what is, we are who we are?
Yeah.
Sat here now, dissecting which part of our brain is responsible for which part of our character. So, you are often very, very down. You often struggle to find the joy. If that's just something that I know and that I live with, I don't go, is that bipolar or is that? I've stopped that game, because what's the point of me asking those questions in my head? It's just what you are. It's just part of what you are. And so it's not, I never think, oh, Mark's down, that's his bipolar. I never think that. But I do think, I think it gives me more patience. That's what I would say. The actual condition forces me to be more patient, because if you didn't have bipolar, I would be more, come on, come on, have more gratitude, have this, have that. But I know it's not something you can just shake yourself out of. Like I can, like when I feel down, because I don't have depression, I would not take offence to someone saying to me, come on, you're just having a low day. Think about all that you have got. And I would be able to go, yeah, you're right, actually. God, when you think of the big picture, absolutely. This is just a blip. This is just a day.
Yeah.
But when somebody's got depression, that's not the same thing. So, no, I don't think we do point the finger. I think it's a bit of a tricky question, that. I mean, I suppose what they're thinking of is, some people might say, well, the reason I'm so unhappy is because of because you do this to me and because you say this every week. So we're not in that fug.
Yeah, it says here, it's important to sort of, a mature person will stop and see what their part in this is. And, and I do think, again, this is tied into rows. I think a row can quite easily get into and quickly get into a blame game situation where I think you're doing this and you think I'm doing that. And then, as you say, you entrench yourself. Whereas actually, it's a trite old phrase, isn't it? It takes two to tango.
But I do think, like I was going to actually say what you said at the beginning. Looking for where things are going wrong and talking about them is emotional intelligence and is a mature relationship.
I think this next one we don't do, because we do this podcast, avoiding tough conversations.
God.
Maybe it'd be nice to not have so many tough conversations.
I'd like a week off.
Yeah, well, okay, bloody hell. If I said that...
Because I think in a marriage, it's not always necessarily about having tough conversations with each other.
Sweeping things under the rug.
I will often, as I know Mark does, have very tough conversations with myself as well, that I might never air out loud to myself or anyone. I have a lot of, arguments. Like the way I do about being a mother. I'll have days where I think, oh, I'm really good at this, and my kids are just... they're great human beings and they're and I will feel good. And then I have days where I'm thinking, oh God, they're so sad and, we're irritated by each other. And it's like, what kind of a fucking mother am I? And, this is, and for me, it's like that with all my relationships. It's like that as a daughter. So it's like that as, I think that with my sister Dina, I think, God, am I good enough? Am I And I think that with my friends all the time. So why wouldn't I also think that as a wife, that's what I mean. I'm having fucking tough conversations all the time with myself. I find it exhausting.
But you do, you've said this in rounds, you avoid tough conversations with me because you don't want to have to deal with the kind of the fallout from it. You know, they talk here about sweeping things under the rug because eventually things bounce back with a vengeance. And I do think this is, again, a difference between men and women, generally.
Yeah, men tend to go, no, please don't.
Well, no, men don't only tend to go, please don't, but women will conceal, hide, push under a rug, and then when it explodes, it's so enormous that there's total disorientation from the bloke. It's kind of like, hang on a minute, why are we talking about the very nature of existence here rather than me having done something that seems quite innocuous? But over time, it's built to something for you. Over time, it's built to something much bigger. So that, as they say here,
Always
is be
hoping for
bold
change.
and have communication about it up front.
Because it's the hope that kills us. Because if you're constantly saying every single thing, like if you've asked for something in a relationship and that person just keeps on not being able to do it, and if every time you pick them up, then you're just arguing all the time. So I think, I'm not talking about us, I'm talking with anyone. Lots of people do argue every single day, don't they? Like bicker all the way through the day and argue every day. But you have to make decisions. The longer you're with somebody, the more you make decisions. It's like, shall I just let this one go? Yeah, I'll let this one go. Okay, how many times have I now let this one go? I'm going to try and have this conversation so it doesn't get to the point where I'm build, and then I hate their guts. So I'm going to try and say it before I hate their guts. But it never works out that way, because if you say, I find that nothing terrifies a man more than saying, can we just talk about this? Can I just be honest? And I go, but they're the very same men that say, why didn't you tell me earlier before you blew up?
Going back in full circle to the original thing I said at the beginning, men, by and large, don't even want to go there with what's bothering them about women emotionally, because I think, by and large, a huge number of women will characterise any sort of, how do they term it here? Tough conversation. If a guy was to instigate a tough conversation about something, my experience of things is that, a little bit like in the narcissist kind of equation, there's always a reason that sits within the bloke's behaviour that's made this problem in the first place.
Well, of course, if somebody's asking for a tough conversation,
hang on. You've just
because of what they're thinking about the other person.
You've just said that you choose not to talk about it now because you want the relationship to move on. There seems to be an unwritten assumption that if a woman in a I'm talking about a heterosexual couple because that's what we are. If a woman, by and large, has a tough conversation to be had, it's all justified. It's all justified and it's all necessary and it needs to be listened to and attended to. If a bloke has a tough conversation, wants to have a tough conversation, it is usually, when it's had, because of something the bloke's done wrong in the first. Whatever he's attesting to, whatever he's saying, look, I don't like this, or this is disappointing me, or what always comes back is, well, it's your fault anyway.
Wow, this is a serious woe is me, isn't it?
No, it's not. See, there you go. There you go. You dismiss the ability of men to be able to say, I have a problem with it. I mean, because I don't feel like, I just choose not to have those conversations because I think, I should just say no.
I've said to you, tell me what's upsetting you about me.
You say that in a slightly sort of gangster fashion.
Oh, God.
It's like, you tell me. You turn into Annie
right.
Palmer.
No, you're not looking back at the computer yet because I want to pick you up on what you said. You said when a woman wants a tough conversation, it's nearly always about what somebody else done. Well, of course.
No.
Because what we were talking about was bringing up where the feeling of conflict is building. So you're not going to ask for a tough conversation and say, I don't really like myself and I don't really like my behaviour. You're going to say, this issue between us is difficult.
And what I'm saying is when men do that, women say to those men, or will characterise what the men are saying as selfish, immature and classically masculine.
Give me an example with us.
Well, like, for example, if I was to say, you are coming across as really moody today in the kitchen, you would turn around and say, don't be paranoid, or take your eyes off me, stop focusing on me. And I'm like, well, actually, you know what? It's just an atmosphere that you've brought into the house, which you tell me I do a lot. And when you tell me I've done it, I have to accept it, even if I don't think I am, or if I think that there's a different reason for that mood, but you think I'm just being this. You tell me that, and you're justified in telling me that because I presented like that. If you present a mood that permeates around the house, which you do, if I say it to you, you deny it. So I don't bother having that tough conversation.
So I won't deny it every single time, but sometimes I will, because sometimes I'm not in a mood. Like often when I say to you, you're in a mood, and you say, I'm not, I'm just thinking, I'm tired, or I'm hungry, or no person in a couple is going to agree every single time another person says they're in the mood. Because everybody can misread each other. But I'm certainly not in the place where I think I'm never in a mood, because sometimes I am in such a fucking mood. Because I'm so sick of all of it. I'm sick of the dishwasher. I'm sick of the thing.
It's attached to something to do with us. It's always justified.
Why is the dishwasher something to do with you?
Because it's the fact that you're within that, baked into that is a frustration that someone hasn't filled. Hang on a minute.
Sometimes I'm in a mood.
So as soon as I say to you, you're in a mood, it's immediately everyone else's fault. You're justified in that mood. Whereas I'm not. I've come in and apparently I'm being deeply selfish.
If I'm sat on my own watching Housewives of Beverly Hills and eating a box of chocolates, then of course I'm in a good mood because I've not got anyone else I'm dealing with. My mood is affected by other people.
So you're only ever in a negative mood because of someone in the house?
If I'm on my own, I'm never in a negative mood.
So you're only ever in a mood because of other people in the house? When I'm told that I'm in a mood, if I was to say that, it would not be accepted or tolerated. It would be seen as critical and it would be seen as something to push back on.
It doesn't mean that it's the other person's fault, but I may be in a mood because of everything. We are all constantly in a state of doing for others, are we not? We're working because we've got to work, so we've got to pay the rent. Or mortgage or whatever. We're cooking because people need to eat. We're driving because somebody needs to be taken somebody else. We're all of us, especially parents, in a constant state of doing for others. Now, 9 times out of 10, that's wonderful because it's a wonderful thing to be a part of a family. But every so often, I am in a mood because I'm like, fucking hell, I just want to breathe. I just want to do whatever I want to do.
Get that.
So those are times when you might say to me, oh, you're in a mood, and I might go, not because I'm not in a mood directly with anyone. I'm in a mood because I feel frustrated or I feel whatever. And so I might go, oh, well, not with any of you. And then I can understand how that can be a bit, well, what do you mean? But actually it's because
You just said it is with all of us.
I just want to run out of the house screaming, tearing my hair out, but you're not allowed to do that because we all have to be sane all the time.
Sorry.
The dogs went crazy, everybody's hungry, we are probably going to end up having a massive row.
Yeah, I'm just put in mind of, in that conversation then, if a man does something wrong, it's his fault, and if a woman does something wrong, it's because of something the man's done.
Oh my God, Mark, that is just a horrible way to end the podcast because you're saying that I'm a narcissist.
No, I'm not saying that of
that's
you.
What a narcissist does.
I'm talking about when we get to issues in relation. It's not the whole person. I'm talking about when you get to these rounds. And also, it can actually work both ways. I think men can be like that too.
Oh, God, well, that's big of you. Jesus Christ.
Anyway, we've only done half of the 10.
Yeah, so, and we might get divorced over it.
This could be the final episode of this podcast.
I think I would have checked out this podcast 10 minutes in.
I think everyone's going to wait and see if we actually get divorced.
Anyway, thanks, guys.
Thank you.